welcome to The Ordinary Effect with me, your host, Guido Perino, as I kick off this early November episode. And I wanted to talk about something that, hey, it might make some people a little uncomfortable: death and dying. Why now? Why talk about that right now? Well, November is sometimes referred to as the month of the dead. And, I've had a couple of funerals, personal ones, this past year. And so I just got to thinking a little bit about that. And, with respect to November and why is it the month of the dead? Well, it has Christian origins, All Saints and All Souls as a reference. November 1st is All Saints Day, and that honors all saints that are known and unknown, those who've reached heaven. And then November 2nd is All Souls Day. It's dedicated to praying for all the departed faithful who are still journeying towards peace. Now, together, these observances form what's called Hallowtide, which spans from October 31st to November 2nd, which is the same period that gave rise to something that we just finished, which was Halloween, All Hallows Eve. So the entire start of November is built around remembrance of the dead, and that theme echoes through the rest of the month in both liturgy and, folk traditions, right? So with respect to the Northern Hemisphere, November marks the full descent of autumn. You've noticed the trees are more bare, the days have gotten shorter, the light fades earlier, the warmth of summer is gone. Now, this visual and sensory change is the natural world, mirroring the cycle of death and dormancy, a reminder of mortality and renewal. Ancient agricultural societies saw this period as the time when the earth rests and the veil between worlds thins, symbolically linking nature's decay with spiritual transition. So before Christian observances, Celtic and pagan cultures celebrated Samhain. It's a festival that marks the end of the harvest and the beginning of winter, again, October 31st through November 1st. And during Samhain, it's believed that the boundaries between the living and the dead was at its most thinnest. And so that resulted in a meaning that spirits could perhaps return to visit the living. We had fires, offerings, and gatherings were held that would honor ancestors and even protect the community. When Christianity spread through Europe, the church blended these long-standing customs into All Saints and All Souls observances, preserving the time of year, but giving it some new spiritual framing that we've rallied around. It is indeed a time for us to, have memories and attach meaning to some of those memories. It isn't about morbidity as much as it's supposed to be about connection. We remember loved ones who shaped us. We acknowledge our shared mortality, which is difficult for some to confront. We reflect on what endures after physical life. In many places, from Mexico's Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, to Poland's Sandusky, November remains a month of candles, cemeteries, and communion with the departed. It's a quiet season, not of fear, but of reverence. Spiritually speaking, November sits between autumn's decline and winter's stillness. It's the space between life and renewal, where we honor endings before the rebirth of light in December. That's why across faiths and eras, November remains the universal threshold between the living and the dead. A month that is meant not just to mourn, but to remember, to reconcile, and to give thanks. Now, as we establish a foundation, a base for what I want to talk about in terms of death and dying and being in November, I think often of the actual event And I've had a couple of funerals to deal with this past year. And one of the things that we often see in funerals are flowers. And I remember as a child going to funerals, and there would be a wall of flowers, right, by the casket during the wake. But I also remember this. I also remember some people going up, paying their respect, and then looking for their flowers. Did the florist deliver my flowers? To honor the person that has obviously heard that I'm visiting. That had some kind of importance. Are my flowers there? Will people see that I sent flowers? And so this thought pattern got me to thinking of all the things that we do in our efforts sometimes to honor the dead, that is more sometimes now for the living than it is for the dead. Now, look, flowers are a universal symbol. They're a symbol of life, of beauty, of impermanence. They bloom bright and then they fade, just as human life does. They're symbolic. They have emotional roles, expression when we don't have words. Flowers communicate sympathy, respect, love without needing much speech. They represent transformation and hope. In some cultures, flowers suggest the soul's journey or rebirth after death. For example, lilies represent restored innocence. Chrysanthemums, they represent mourning in parts of Europe and Asia. Flowers offer comfort through beauty. Their fragrance and color soften the harshness of loss, offering a sense of peace, gentleness, in otherwise perhaps a more painful setting. But where I get lost in the world of flowers at funerals is when we have to advertise that we sent the flowers. The person who's laying there doesn't know you sent the flowers. Who needs to know? Honestly, who needs to know by me putting my relationship on a banner on those flowers? Do the people around me, other people visiting, is it important for them to know that I gave those flowers to honor the person that is laying at rest before me? And so I struggle with that part of it as I think about it. The other part is, the registry. When we come in, we sign our name in a book. Is it for the person who's passed, or is it for the living? It's for the living, so they can look back and say, who visited? Who was here for my loved one? Because maybe, in the moment, you don't remember who was there, you're dealing with grief, and maybe it's a good tool, right? But the idea of lining up to let somebody know that we were there, so that something could happen down the line, you could say, I didn't see so-and-so, but I know that they were there, right? For the living, not for the dead. Something that became more popular, it wasn't as popular when I was younger, but it's food. We share food after there's some kind of food celebration, after, the ceremony or the service has been completed. And why do we share food? We share food because death reminds us of our human vulnerability, but it also reminds us of life, care, and connection. And sharing a meal after a funeral is one of the oldest mourning traditions across cultures. It's become more popular now, a celebration of life. We sit together, we eat together, we talk together, often honoring memories of the individual who has deceased, who we have lost. But sometimes the food thing kind of bothers me, because even that, if little conversations, is it good? Is it bad? Is it too hot? Is it too cold? Somebody just died. Who cares? It's not about the food. The food is a medium. It's a tool. We're there to use it to celebrate the person. And whether it's great or not that great is irrelevant. It should be irrelevant. Life goes on. Food symbolizes the continuation of life amid loss. The body still needs nourishment, and community helps supply it. That's what it's about, staying together in that moment. There's another part where we have the memorabilia. We demonstrate remembrance by putting artifacts, memories, pictures. And I do love that. I do. It offers the living a moment to reflect. It honors the dead by having us reflect on their accomplishments, their love of hobbies, sports, shows, people, events, things they did that made them who they were and who we grew to love. It's also an opportunity for the living to really step inside the person's life in a quiet moment, which are rare these days. Everybody's talking, everybody's creating, everybody's sharing information. And we have conversations, but sometimes our conversations are surface level conversations. We don't go into the depth that we see in some of the memorabilia that lay before us when a person has passed. And so again, as much as we honor the dead, it's for the living as we reflect. What really bothers me, though, the piece that bothers me about that is sometimes we have people who come to honor the dead who didn't honor them while they were alive, didn't see them regularly, didn't talk to them, didn't call them, didn't share recent memories with them. And yet they are there, a part of the deceased's life in that final moment, peering into their lives that maybe they haven't been part of for a long time. Now, perhaps maybe some of it is asking for their own forgiveness. I don't know. But I always look at that, and as much as I celebrate it, I also wonder, does everybody deserve that moment to peer into the person that we love, into their life that way? Which leads me to the phrase, "I see dead people," made famous in the movie The Sixth Sense with Bruce Willis. There is broader symbolism in this movie. We start to look at death and denial, where many people live without confronting their own emotional deaths, failed relationships, lost dreams, perhaps regrets. Redemption. Seeing the dead is a step towards helping them and oneself move on. Perhaps faith and perception. It questions what's real, urging the viewers to consider that truth may exist beyond what we can see. And so, what is it that you can see? Can you see acceptance and healing? Can you see compassion, forgiveness, understanding, a connection between the living and the dead? I will leave you to ponder those thoughts as we continue to observe November, which is the month of the dead and the living. Thank you for listening. This is The Ordinary Effect. I'm your host, Guido Perino. Take care.